WFYI podcast brought to you by Bloomington, Indiana, an American college town offering food and drink, college sports, outdoor activities, live music, cool art, and good times daily. Everyone is welcome in Bloomington. More information at visitbloomington.com.
Are you interested in reaching the WFYI audience while supporting the programming you love? Become a sponsor today. Learn more at wfyi.org/sponsor.
We're going to take a trip right now. Like we always do about this time.
This is a journey into sound. Break it down.
I'm Kyle Long, and you're listening to Cultural Manifesto. On this week's show, I'll speak with the jazz guitarist Charlie Ballantine. He'll be performing at the Jazz Kitchen in Indianapolis on May 15th.
I think it's the nature of the artist to just have this underlying crippling self-doubt, you know?
And on the second half of the program, we'll listen back to my 2023 interview with the bilingual children's music duo Un, Dos, Tres, Andrés.
Children's music is not a genre, but an audience.
They'll be performing at Central Library in downtown Indianapolis on April 27th for Dia del Niño at Be My Neighbor Day. The event is free and open to the public. For jazz fans in Indianapolis, Charlie Ballantine needs no introduction. Over the last 10 years, Charlie has played an integral role in the city's jazz scene. Last year, Charlie left Indianapolis for Baltimore, Maryland, and his new album, Letters and Graffiti, is his first release since relocating. The album builds on Charlie's unique discography, which blends Americana, folk, and rock with straight-ahead jazz. Past recordings from Charlie include tributes to Bob Dylan and Thelonious Monk, and an album of original compositions inspired by the novels of Kurt Vonnegut. Let's join my conversation with Charlie Ballantine as we discuss Love Letters and Graffiti and his upcoming performance in Indianapolis. First of all, thank you for taking time to talk with me today.
Absolutely. It's always great talking to you, Kyle.
Yeah, and it's been a few years since we last spoke. You left Indianapolis in 2023, and you're currently living in Baltimore, Maryland. Before we talk about your new album and tour, tell us a bit about your move to Baltimore, and have you been immersing yourself in the city's music scene?
Yeah, it's been a really great experience getting to play with the people out here. For one, there's so many incredible players, and two, everything's so close out here. So DC and Baltimore are kind of the same scene. Philly's about an hour, maybe a little over an hour away, and then New York is 2.5, 3 hours away. So I've been able to interact with a lot of people from all those cities, and it's been incredible.
You had a lot of success, I would say, here in Indianapolis. Sometimes when people leave a scene or a community where they're well established, there's some trepidation about entering into a new scene. Did you have any concerns about that? And it doesn't seem like that's been a problem for you, but how has it been going so far, getting established in Baltimore?
I didn't have a ton of concerns because we did know a lot of people out here already, and I traveled and played out here a fair amount when I was living in Indianapolis, and so it wasn't too bad. But there is always that feeling, I mean, I think it's the nature of the artist to just have this underlying crippling self-doubt, so that existed definitely, in the back of my mind. It was always kind of like, well, what if this doesn't work? But as soon as I got here and started meeting people, it was really a welcoming scene. It really, there's a lot of work and a lot of musicians, and everyone's pretty happy out here, as far as the jazz scene goes. So it was a good transition.
You have a new album coming out in June. You'll be touring on the album here in Indianapolis in May. The album is titled Love Letters and Graffiti, and I want to share a track from that album titled Blues for Baltimore. Tell us a bit about this record and tell us about that song, too.
Yeah, this was most of these songs were kind of written in that transition period. You know, a lot of them I was playing right at the end, writing and playing right at the end of my time in Indianapolis, and then, you know, writing and playing as soon as I got to Baltimore. So it was kind of, you know, I was kind of straddling that line, you know, when I was thinking about producing this record. And this one in particular, I think it was the first song I wrote when I got to Baltimore, and my 3-year-old at the time, she was 3, she, you know, if she doesn't know a word or understand what it is, she kind of just combines it with something that she does know. So Baltimore was Baltimore for like, up until recently, it was for like a year, it was Baltimore. So, you know, it was kind of a dark tune, but I always like to, you know, have my 3-year-old and my interactions with her kind of be a part of the production of all my records. So that was a way to sneak that in as well.
It's a great title. Anything else you want to say about that track or the album in general before we listen?
Not really, just maybe talk a little bit about the musicians, because they're some really incredible players, some of the most important guys, I think, in the last 20 years of modern jazz, really. And John Cowherd on piano is known for his work with Brian Blade. He's also played and produced albums for Brandi Carlile, you know, in a different genre of music than jazz. And then Rudy Royston and Tony Shear are guys that I've been listening to since I was a kid. They've done a lot of incredible work with Bill Frisell and his different projects. So it was really nice linking up with them as soon as I got out here, and we recorded it in New York. And yeah, it was a big project, a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, we'll hear a track from that album now. This is Charlie Ballantine with Blues for Baltimore. That was Charlie Ballantine with Blues for Baltimore off his upcoming album, Love Letters and Graffiti. Charlie will be performing at the Jazz Kitchen on Wednesday, May 15th. And Charlie, since we last spoke, you've released a couple albums, I believe, and I want to play a track from your 2022 album, Falling Grace. The opening cut on the album is your interpretation of Thank You by the English singer-songwriter Dido. That song was a huge hit for Dido in the year 2000. It was also famously sampled by Eminem. I'm sure all our listeners know it. Tell us about your version of this song and how this track came into your repertoire. It's a really interesting version of the tune.
Yeah, I wish it was a really deep, amazing story, but we were in the middle of those sessions, actually. I think we had already started recording that record. And I just heard that song one night before we went into the studio the next day. And I just thought, man, this is, you know, it kind of just, it still catches my ear. It was such a beautiful, you know, thing in pop music in that era. It was just so melodic, so different than anything I can remember from that era. So it just really caught my ear. I sat there and I wrote down the chord changes and brought him into the studio the next day, and everyone was kind of like, oh man, this is this tune. You know, it's kind of, that was the feeling I hope to evoke when people heard it on the record. It was like, you know, after like 10 seconds, it's like, oh yeah, you know, this song. So that was how that came about. It wasn't, there's no super deep meaning other than I've just always really loved that tune.
Your version is really unique, and it seems like it kind of took off on Spotify. Is that right?
Yeah, it got added to some playlists. Yeah, I think it has. Yeah, it's my number one song on Spotify. The algorithm liked it.
Yeah, it's doing huge numbers on there, and it's an amazing version. We're going to listen to it now. This is Charlie Ballantine with Thank You. That was Charlie Ballantine with Thank You. Charlie will be performing at the Jazz Kitchen on Wednesday, May 15th. And Charlie, I mentioned that you're currently living in Baltimore, but it seems to me that you've maintained a connection to the music scene here in Indiana. And you are on two important Indianapolis albums that were released this year. And I want to ask you about those collaborations. First, tell us about your work with From the 317, which is a project led by Sleepy Floyd and Rob Dixon that seeks to document the contemporary Indianapolis sound. I believe you're featured on a couple or a few tracks on that album. Tell us about From the 317 and your contribution to that record.
Yeah, those sessions were so much fun. I mean, Rob and Sleepy are geniuses, you know, and I knew my whole time in Indy that I was very lucky to be in a city with those guys, very lucky to work with them as much as I did. And yeah, those sessions were great. It was, you know, it was like anything I've ever done with either of them. It was just a lot of fun, collaborative, laid back, and you know, that's what you want to try to accomplish in a session. That's the hardest part, is just getting people together that maybe have never played together, making sure everyone has a good time, and then great music is always made, you know, if that's the case. And Rob and Sleepy are incredible at that, just getting all these people from different genres. You know, some of us had never met, I don't think, and you know, we just all kind of sat down in the same room, would kind of come up with parts of the tunes. Rob and Sleepy always had a pretty specific sketch of what each song was going to look like, and then, you know, the band laid it down.
I'm just being honest. I hope I can never drift to a space where your love won't guide us or find us, co-sign us. I just came here to vent, don't mind us, true. I hope you feel it too.
Want you to feel it too. May my words ring true. I hope you feel it too. I hope you feel it too. I hope you feel it too. Want you to feel it too. Let my words ring true. I hope you feel it too. I hope you feel it too.
And Charlie, you're also featured on an extraordinary new album from the composer and multimedia artist Jordan Munson. The album is titled Heartless Fools. Jordan's music is often experimental and utilizes a variety of electronic music production techniques. It's a bit different than the work you've done in jazz music. Tell us about your collaboration with Jordan Munson and, what you make of his work in this album.
Yeah, I recorded on that. It was several years ago now, because Jordan, he's meticulous. So it took, you know, he was working on that for years and years. But I want to say maybe like 4 years ago or something, I recorded those guitar tracks, and I remember in the moment kind of being like, are you sure that's what you wanted? I just kind of remember having kind of these wall of sound type textures that I was laying down on his music, and he's like, yeah, that was perfect. I'm just going to play some, you know, where I think they should go. And so the way Jordan, you know, produced that record is really unbelievable. He just kind of took these textures and these different colors from people doing different things in these sessions and placing them together, you know, almost as like ambient samples. And I think that might even be the record that he had the kind of Icelandic cave sounds on, where he went to Iceland and recorded samples from Icelandic caves. So it was really just an honor to be part of a project with, someone so creative with that type of vision. I really learned a lot working with Jordan.
You've also worked with the Indianapolis avant-garde composer Rob Funkhauser, right?
Oh, yeah, a ton. I love Rob.
Yeah, and I've heard you do some things live, kind of layering your guitar in different loops and improvising over the top of it. What role does more experimental or electronic or ambient music have in the breadth of music you create?
Yeah, playing with Rob is always an incredible experience. I think of it kind of the same way as I do anything, whether I'm playing a bebop tune or a pop tune, I'm just trying to settle in with the band and do what I can to kind of complement what's going on. And it's no different with Rob. I think the challenge is with avant-garde and ambient music is that it can kind of exist on its own. So it's always a question of what do I add? What does this need? But I just try and leave those creative channels open and hope for the best in any situation.
And finally, Charlie, you'll be performing here in Indianapolis at the Jazz Kitchen on Wednesday, May 15th. You'll be bringing an amazing band with you. You mentioned John Cowherd earlier. Tell us about this show and the musicians you'll be bringing with you here to Indianapolis.
Yeah, it's our album release tour, and it's an incredible band. John Cowherd, from Brian Blade's group, will be with us on piano. Dave King from the Bad Plus will be on drums, and then my friend from New Orleans, Quinn Sternberg, will be playing bass on this tour, and a lot of stuff from the new record as well as some music that will be on the next record. A mix of different things and some old, some new, but it's going to be great. I think we're doing 2 shows. I think the first one's pretty close to sold out, but there's room in the second one. So I'm just really looking forward to coming back to Indianapolis and getting to be in that room again, kind of, place I'll always think of as my home jazz club and one of the greatest jazz clubs in the world.
Charlie, any final thoughts you want to share before we go, or a final track you want to leave us with?
Let's see. I think Love Letter, which was kind of my love letter to Indianapolis when I was leaving the city. It was, I think, the last song I wrote there off of the new record would be a great one to end with. But no, I don't have any other thoughts. It's just always so great talking to you, Kyle, and thanks for having me on and helping me push my music and my show. Thanks, man.
Yeah, likewise. I always enjoy hearing new music from you. And we'll end with Love Letter. This is Charlie Ballantine. Charlie, thank you so much. Cultural Manifesto will return after this short break.
WFYI podcast brought to you by Bloomington, Indiana, an American college town offering food and drink, college sports, outdoor activities, live music, cool art, and good times daily. Everyone is welcome in Bloomington. More information at visitbloomington.com.
I'm Kyle Long, and you're listening to Cultural Manifesto. Up next, we'll listen back to my 2023 interview with Andrés Salguero and Cristina Sanabria of Un Dos Tres Andrés, a Grammy-winning duo who create bilingual music for children and families. The music of Un Dos Tres Andrés incorporates rhythms from across North and South America and features collaborations with legendary Latin music performers, including Rubén Blades and Gilberto Santa Rosa. Un Dos Tres Andrés will be performing at Central Library in downtown Indianapolis on April 27th for Dia del Niño at Be My Neighbor Day. The event is free and open to the public. Let's join my conversation with Andrés Salguero and Cristina Sanabria. Andrés, Cristina, thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Kyle.
Super excited. Thank you.
In addition to creating music together, you're also married, right?
We are, and we celebrated our 12th anniversary just a couple of days ago. Yeah.
Your backgrounds complement each other so well. Andrés, you have an extensive history studying music. Cristina, you have a master's degree in education, and you also have a background in theater. This is sort of the perfect recipe for making children's music. How did you come together and develop this project?
It was totally unrelated to any of this work. I grew up in Kansas City. My parents are immigrants from Colombia, and I, at that time, was living in Philadelphia. I was a classroom teacher in public schools, and I was just home for the holiday break, and I happened to go to an extended family event, and I found Andrés.
And when we started talking, we started just seeing those connections. And it took a little bit, but then when we saw what we wanted to do together, creating this project, Uno, Dos, Tres Andrés, it's been more than 10 years, 8 albums, 3 books, and first time here in Indianapolis performing for the family. So we're super excited.
Yeah, welcome here. And again, thank you. And
Gracias.
I'm going to play some examples of your music. But first, I wanted to learn a little bit more about your early years. Cristina, you mentioned you grew up here in the Midwest in Kansas City. What did you want to do with your life as a young person? Did you see yourself becoming part of a project like this?
I'm very fortunate that my parents involved me in the arts. So as a young child, I did ballet, and I also did baile folclórico, so Mexican folkloric dance. I did Colombian folkloric dance, but in Kansas City, where I grew up, the Mexican community was larger, and it's very vibrant. I loved folclórico. Later on, I did theater. I acted in professional productions as a child. But later on, I didn't think I would have a career in the arts. I went for something more practical, so to speak, and I became an educator.
Andrés, you studied music extensively as a young person, and you eventually received a doctorate in clarinet performance, right?
Yes.
Tell us about your pathway to this project.
Great question, because for a long time I was torn between 2 worlds. And one was, of course, classical music, where you have to, let's say, serve the composers and, perform this beautiful music, but that is very well known. I mean, and there's a lot of people doing it. And the other half wanted to just be my creative self. And in Colombia, I did some rock, I did some punk even. But here in the States, it's so interesting. I discovered a lot of Latin music here in the States, because here you're just surrounded by people from all over the Americas. So a lot of influences from the Caribbean, from Mexico, Central America, from Argentina. So I played with so many different people. I learned so much, and I started listening to so many records. And for example, music by Rubén Blades, who is one of our heroes. And eventually, I started being part of a band. And his name is Dino Odell. He's a Midwestern performer, and he invited me to be part of his children's music band. And that's when we started thinking, we could start our own project, write our own music. But there was a moment where there was this pull between these two worlds of highbrow, lowbrow. Like in my mind, I was a little bit, sold to the idea that, classical music is more important, or is more sophisticated, but then even though I had a doctorate in all of that, then I realized how important it was for me to celebrate my own culture, my own language, and to go to schools and inspire children, and to try to be a role model for them.
You've been at the extremes of every sector of music.
Exactly, from punk to opera.
Yeah. And that richness really informs the music you're creating with this project.
Thank you. Yeah, and I invite parents to listen to our albums with adult ears, because we put arrangements that are interesting, and we have invited recently some artists that live in the adult music world. And for example, so that's a beautiful thing to share. We were able to invite Rubén Blades, my childhood hero, ended up being part of one of our albums, and Gilberto Santa Rosa, and some just amazing artists from the adult world that we invited them to come and sing for children.
I want to ask you about those artists in that album in a minute.
Of course.
First, I wanted to ask a question about the importance of presenting music bilingually. And not only is this a bilingual project, you're now incorporating American Sign Language into the performance. So it's, I guess, trilingual in a way, the performance aspect of it. Tell us about the importance of presenting bilingual music throughout the Midwest and United States.
Thank you. I grew up bilingually. I spoke Spanish at home with my family and English at school. And I think for us, it's about learning languages in general. So, I learned French in school as well. Andrés is studying Portuguese, and we are fascinated by ASL. It's such an important language, and children are fascinated by it as well. And so I think for us, it's a matter of celebrating what is, close to our heart and close to the heart of many children. But we also love seeing children who come to our concerts and say, "Oh, I speak Korean at home," and maybe they teach us a few words. "Oh, I speak Punjabi," and we also hear children come up to us saying, "My father is deaf, and we use ASL at home." And so it's beautiful to find a point of connection, whether it's that we come from the same country or simply we have and that experience of being multilingual, and children love it.
And we all know the stories of, let's say, Chicanos from, a couple of generations ago, and not even a couple, like the previous generation, who they were not allowed to speak Spanish at school. They were punished. So it is a beautiful thing for us to be able to visit so many schools. Now there's a great push for dual language education in so many parts of the country, including Indiana. So there's an interest and a need there. So there's change, and it's so great that we don't hear some of those stories anymore.
And I want to ask about your Grammy-nominated album, Activate. You made a reference to this a minute ago, Andrés. This album features some of the most extraordinary legends in music. Rubén Blades, who you mentioned, Gilberto Santa Rosa, who's a huge star. How did you get these legendary artists to sing on a children's music record?
Wow. Thank you so much. It was a combination of making music that was at their level, right? We had to really hit it out of the park, like we say. And talking about that, also, we made music that connected with them at a personal level. For example, Gilberto Santa Rosa, he's, one of the biggest salsa stars. He fills stadiums all over the world, really. And he was a baseball player. as as a young cat in Puerto Rico. So we wrote a song especially for him, talking about baseball. So I think he just connected with the song and he wanted to be part of it. And also the fact that the whole project, Actívate, has a mission, and through this album, we're still obviously collecting all of the royalties, and we're sending them to Colombia and Venezuela to support children who are studying music. So it's beautiful. We have already 3 children that we are supporting, studying drums, cello, violin. We buy their instruments. We support them. We want to encourage them to dream big and have music be an important part of their lives.
Rubén Blades often makes very intellectual music. He's known for his association with Willie Colon, who cultivated this image of a gangster. How did he feel about getting involved in a children's music project?
It was very special, this album, because also Los Rabanes, who is a emblematic rock band from Panama, was there. So it was kind of a family reunion. Los Rabanes and Rubén, they had him recorded together for 15 years. So that was important. And I think he connected with the music and the theme that it talks about. There's a story in this song about a child who may see some obstacles, but the child keeps going on his skateboard or on their skateboard. They keep just skating on and jumping through obstacles and going to the grandma's house. And Rubén Blades, and it was a coincidence. Now I'm thinking about it, talking with you, Kyle. Now, for Rubén Blades, his grandma was such a big part and inspiration of his life. So I got to see him in New York recently during a conference, and I just told him, man, can I give you a hug? Because all of this was recorded during the pandemic, and we didn't see each other. So it was just great to meet him and thank him in person for really changing my life. And hopefully that's our dream, that we can change people's life through our music and inspire them a little bit.
Como un relámpago iba en la patineta. Un pie en la tabla, otro en la carretera. Sacando chispa, gastando la chancleta. Y aún recuerdo que en esos días no había muro que no saltara. No había cosa que no podía, solo quería llegar a casa.
I think when people think of children's music, it feels like maybe it's like a restrictive type of music for a musician. Like you have to really pull in the language that you've learned as you have a doctorate, and you kind of have to pull that in a little bit to communicate with the young people. But on this album, you work in so many different styles. You have salsa, rock music, cumbia, banda, plena. You're just going crazy, bringing in all these influences. It must be fun to create in so many styles that maybe you wouldn't have a chance to outside of creating children's music. Tell me about that aspect of the record.
Absolutely. I think that children's music is not a genre, but an audience. And so our music, exactly as you say, we bring in sounds from all different parts of the Americas, from Argentina and Bolivia to the Caribbean. And I think it's important for all of us to see and hear how diverse what is known as Latin music is, from huayno to cumbia and merengue. And it is a lot of fun. We get the opportunity to work with people from all different parts of Latin America. And as Andrés mentioned, being in the U.S., the U.S. is the biggest Latin American country there is, because we have collaborated with artists from Chile, from Puerto Rico, from Cuba, from Mexico, and each of them bring their own experience to bear on the project.
I don't think I've heard another album that has that reach that this album has. Mixing. You even have country music on some of your tracks. It's unbelievable.
Thank you, Kyle. And we invite everybody just to find it anywhere. Imagine the word activate, or in Spanish, actívate. And there's so much variety that you're going to find something. And there's a common theme throughout the album that is inviting families to do something together, to move together, to activate together. It could be soccer, walking around the neighborhood, flying a kite, something that we need a step away from the screens, from the devices, and just connect with your children, because those memories, that's what kids remember. We were reading a memoir by a TV writer, and the thing that he remembers was the day that his dad went with him to just throw some ball at the park, and that's one of the biggest, fondest memories of his life.
I have to ask about your 2018 album, La Luna, which is a beautiful record. This is really an extraordinary album for anyone to listen to. And I'm going to play the song La Montaña, which is a beautiful song.
Uh-huh.
This is a collection of lullabies, right? Is that essentially what the concept of the record is?
Yes, La Luna means the moon, and this is a collection of songs for dreaming, whether that's a baby being put down for their nap, or whether it's imagining what the moon might say to the stars up in the sky.
And the song La Montaña is by Colombian composer Edson Velandia, and he is one of the most eclectic artists that I've seen. And this song is just so beautiful. And our friends from Venezuela, they did all these vocal arrangements, and I think it's just gorgeous for any age.
La montaña por donde cae el sol, camino que lleva al río, la leña que llama al fuego, canción que espanta la tempestad.
I want to play next a song from your album, Hola Amigo. On this album, you address some very serious themes. And I want to ask you about the song Hambone, which not only addresses the protests that happened in 2020, the Black Lives Matter movement. You also mentioned the names of some of the victims of police violence in the United States, Tamir Rice, George Floyd, etc. Tell me about addressing these complicated themes through your music and kind of what the thought process is, because it's something you have to be very careful about, right?
Absolutely. And we are here to support families in having conversations with their children, whether those conversations are about the ABCs and counting by even numbers, or whether it's conversations about what is going on in our world. And during that time period, we attended some protests to, just show that we are in support of Black Lives Matter, and there were children a part of the protests as well. And so, we know that some families may feel trepidation about how to have those conversations, and some families feel an immediate need to have them before, something happens that they might encounter. Whether that is any topic, there's so many topics that come up, school shootings, environmental concerns, so many topics.
Hambone, Hambone, where you been?
Hambone, Hambone, where you been?
I was walking down the street.
I was walking down the street.
Were you walking by yourself?
Were you walking by yourself?
No, I was walking with my friends.
No, I was walking with my friends.
What were you holding in your hand?
What were you holding in your hand?
I was holding a big old sign.
I was holding a big old sign.
On your sign, what did it say?
On your sign, what did it say?
We want justice, we want change.
We want justice, we want change.
And my final question to you both is about the importance of public media, especially for children. We live in a time where children are just so close to so much toxic material online and also on television now. Talk to me about the importance of the kind of programming that public media provides to young people and the kind of art that you're creating for young people in this contemporary culture.
Wow, what an important question. And one word that comes to mind is curation. And as we've partnered with organizations and public media, we see firsthand how much thought and care and intentionality and research and iteration goes into selecting, crafting, improving the content. And you're right that there are things that can be more like visually attractive and like eye candy that draw viewers in. All of us have, scrolled for way too long on some social media platform. And so as artists, it feels good to partner with people who are so being so thoughtful about what goes out for children.
And I was recently reading an article about dreaming about a public-supported internet, or networks, community networks, and it's something that people are starting to develop, because the big profit that is nothing is going to change, because there's people making just zillions of dollars, and that's why they want to trap you. They want to trap, and they want to trap users as young as possible, so they become just normalized in this world. So we're just very grateful for exactly public media, because it's run by the community. There's a board. There's it's publicly there's public oversight, and is not run by the need to make profit. So the priorities are different, and they're thinking about the community and service.
Well said. I can't thank you both enough for being here today. Any final thoughts you want to leave for the listeners of Indiana?
It's an honor and a privilege to be here in Indianapolis. We are planning to return for live concerts, so please check us out. 123 Andrés, 123 Andrés, anywhere you find music and media, and a cantar.
Gracias. Thank you so much. Great conversation.
That's all the time we have for this week. Thank you to my guests, Charlie Ballantine, Andrés Salguero, and Cristina Sanabria. Check out the Cultural Manifesto podcast at WFYI.org or wherever you listen to podcasts. Cultural Manifesto is hosted and produced by me, Kyle Long. Thank you for listening.
Are you interested in reaching the WFYI audience while supporting the programming you love? Become a sponsor today. Learn more at WFYI.org/sponsor.